feels she'd rather have a house dog.
Our other dog, Melody, was she was a, oh golly, I forget what they call them. I used to take her to the nursing homes and therapy. She was a therapy dog. And I used to take her to the hospitals and nursing homes, and she was wonderful. She would put her paws up on the bed, and then she would inch over to the patient, and they would pat her. Or if they were in wheelchairs, Melody would go over and sit next to them, and they would pat her. And the nurses would always say, just by patting that dog, that is more than this patient has done in a week. So animals are very therapeutic for people who are in nursing homes or ill.
Absolutely.
I haven't done that with Shayna. Shayna is a totally different person. Oh, she spilled the water.
That's quite all right.
There's not much left now. Shayna is a very different kind of boxer than I've ever had. And people ask me why I have a boxer. My father bred boxers when I was younger, and so I've always had them, and I've always known their personalities. And I've had boxers all my life. Shane is probably the 5th or 6th one that we've owned. But I've also fostered and rescued boxers.
Oh, yeah, tell us about that.
Yeah, well, I used to belong to a group that would look for people to foster, and every breed has a rescue service, every breed. So I was involved with the boxer rescue breeders, and I volunteered to take in rescues or foster them until they were adopted. So I did that for a long while. Shayna is a very, Shayna is a very active dog, and for me to take in rescues or fosters would have been a very difficult position to put me in, because she sometimes is hard to control. She's very, very strong, very powerful. I'm going to let you hold her. Very strong and powerful.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
And so therefore having 2 or 3 other dogs in the house at a time would have been difficult. And some of these dogs that I would foster and rescue would have health problems. And so we had to make sure they were well before they were adopted.
So you had to take them to the vet, obviously.
Yep, took them to the vet, made sure they were nice and healthy, made sure that their diet was good. And I can remember one particular dog that we had that had a problem holding her bladder.
Oh, no.
And every single time, she loves her daddy.
Well, if I might interject, my wife did one thing which I thought was very unusual. In Maine, where we summer, one of our dogs died. She had the dog cremated and put into a beautiful box with a little saying on it, and she sent out invitations to all our 25 neighbors
For Memorial
for
Day.
a memorial service in memory of our dog. And a lot of them had dogs, and they said things about their dog. And the ones that didn't came up and said and talked anyway. But I couldn't believe it. Most of our neighbors all came up to the service because they all love animals. But I thought it was very sad. But they told us stories about their animals, and we told them stories about Shayna. But she sent out invitations to all our neighbors, and 90% came to the service.
You know, that's amazing.
Yeah,
It was amazing.
what we did was,
very fun.
I did have a memorial service because a lot of the people that we summer with had animals, and they were all, basically, many of them had passed. And so I made this special Memorial Day service, and I told everybody to bring a picture of their animal, and if they wanted to bring some food along, that would be fine. And I set up a table this was outside in our yard, and they brought pictures of their animals, which we lined up on the table. And then everybody got a chance to go around and speak about their animal, cats or dogs. Absolutely right.
I think before we finish, I want you to tell that story about what happened with the fire department one Thanksgiving dinner. We had a little dog, a small dog with a bushy tail.
Well,
Tell her what happened. This is
Which dog was that?
This goes back a long time ago when my brother who's now passed, but he and his wife had adopted a little girl.
Oh, nice.
And this little girl wanted a dog in the worst way. And they had cats, so they didn't want a dog. So Chrissy was her name. So we took Chrissy to a pet store, and Chrissy fell in love with this little white Lhasa Apso.
Oh, those are adorable.
She fell in love with it. So I said, I'll tell you what, Chrissy, why don't we get the dog? We'll leave it in our house. I wasn't with the dog at that time. we'll leave it in our house, but it'll be your dog. Well, Chrissy lived in Marblehead, and I lived in Malden, and Chrissy couldn't come to see the dog, so it actually became our dog. So this dog, it was a good little dog, but it wasn't my kind of dog. I'm a boxer person, but we kept Muffin. Did we name it Muffin? Muffin. And one year, I think it was around. Actually it was Thanksgiving.
It was Thanksgiving Day,
It was
Barbara.
Thanksgiving night, and I had a lot of company over the house, and so they all went home, and now I was putting everything away and cleaning. And my husband and one of my daughters was home. They were in the TV room. And so I was cleaning, and the last thing I had to do was vacuum. It was about 11:15, and I said, oh, this is great. I'll finish vacuuming, and then I can watch the 11 o'clock news with my family. So I'm vacuuming, and I go into the TV room. We had a coffee table that was dark. You couldn't see under it. So I vacuum underneath, and all of a sudden I pull the vacuum out. I heard a noise. It went... And there was Muffin's tail all wrapped up in the vacuum cleaner. Now it's 11 o'clock at night on Thanksgiving. I said to my husband, what am I going to do? It was a brand new vacuum cleaner. That was the first time I had used it. He said, I know the man who owns the company where you bought the vacuum. We called him up. His son said, they're out of town for the holiday. I now think, what am I going to do? This poor dog is wrapped up in the vacuum cleaner. The tail is right up to the edge of her spine. I said, I know, I'll call the fire department. They can do anything. So I called up the fire department, and I said, I'm not crazy. I just want you to listen to my tale of woe. I told them about the story, and they said, okay, lady. I could tell by their tone of voice. They thought that I was like 3 sheets to the wind. Within minutes, we lived right behind the fire station. Within minutes, they were at my house with their long hook and ladder that took up 2 driveways plus the front of my house. I had 3 firemen at the door with their full regalia on, and one was carrying a hatchet. And I said, oh my God, they're going to cut off her tail. So now it's beginning to snow, and I had just cleaned, and they came in, and I said, could you just take your boots off, because I just vacuumed my rugs. I don't want snow. They took them off. They went in the TV room, and they said, oh my God, she really did vacuum up the embarrassed. In the meantime, they got the dog out of the vacuum cleaner. The next day, I sent a thank you note to the fire department to thank them, and signed it with the other dog's name. And before you knew it, it was in the paper, and it was all over the city.
Oh, wow.
And to this day, which has to be 20 years later, 25 years later, they still talk about it. The fire department, this fella, Jack Colangeli, who is still with the Malden Fire Department and owns Jack's Restaurant, which he opened up, a wonderful restaurant, by the way. Jack still talks about it. He said, you know, there are certain things in our careers that we never forget. He said, and I have that letter in my scrapbook, and I'll never forget that story.
Wow, so Muffin really had a legacy then.
So